the Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network presents Worldview Media Podcast, where Gordon and Joyce Runyon view popular media through the lens of the biblical five-point covenant model to help believers appreciate and apply principles of exciting narrative and engaging storytelling.
Hello!
Well, hello.
What?
You went out of turn.
Oh, welcome back. Thank you.
Oh, hello.
Hey.
Y'all are crazy. Anyway, live from a chess tournament sponsored by the United Nations.
Woo.
It's the Worldview Media Podcast.
Yay!
Welcoming back after a long hiatus, Mama Joyce into
Hey.
the studio.
I'm back. I had to say hello.
You couldn't contain yourself.
My word.
Couldn't contain myself.
Contain yourself, woman.
I can't be contained yet.
All right, and we also have middle daughter Jordan with us today.
Hello.
Hello, I am
Hello.
your co-host Gordon Runyon, and this is the Worldview Media Podcast, where we try to discern messages and morals and worldviews being preached by popular media.
Mm-hmm.
This week we're stretching the definition of popular. Somebody who shall remain nameless recommended that we watch a movie from Netflix called Queen of Katwe.
Katwe. Well, not from Netflix. On Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
It's from
It's a Disney.
Disney.
It's actually
Disney in cooperation with ESPN.
ESPN Films.
An unlikely production team there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe that's why it's
I'm
not
not-
so popular.
I'm not sure it was terribly popular.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so in this movie, we meet up with a young girl named Fiona who lives in Katwe, which is a slum area in Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
And she happens across a, what would you call it? It's
Like an after-school type program.
Well, not even after school, because most of these kids are not
Yeah,
going
they're
to
not
school.
even
It's like
going
an
to
outreach.
Yeah,
program.
okay. It's kind of a blandish sort of outreach
Blandish.
ministry. It's called sports outreach ministry or
Yes,
something.
something like that.
Okay, so in this sports outreach ministry, they do things like teach kids to play soccer and stuff.
To
And
keep them off the streets
Yeah,
and give
they-
them
they
a place
feed
to
them.
eat food. And
you get a cup of warm porridge whenever you go. And I'm curious if anybody's ever had porridge.
well, isn't porridge just oatmeal? Isn't that the same thing? That's what the British people call oatmeal.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But they were drinking it out of a cup.
Well, you could do
It
that
does
with
flow
oatmeal.
if you...
It does flow.
I mean, oatmeal isn't
Well,
solid.
it does
You could
flow.
sip it
I
out
mean,
of a cup.
It doesn't have to have the consistency of paste.
Yeah. You could. I mean, you can change up the consistency. I don't know.
I don't think it's oatmeal.
Well, I know that that's
Because I don't think that's a grain that they have there. So I'm thinking it's a corn-based product because they have the
well,
corn.
Is
I
it
mean,
like
maybe-
whiskey where you can use different grains to make...
maybe so. Maybe it could
you
be
can
like
have
a.
oat porridge and corn porridge.
I don't know. I feel like I heard a while back that's just what they call oatmeal over on the other
Oh,
side.
okay.
So it may be like a similar thing, but with
Well.
like a different grain if there's, a different grain.
And how many oatmeal fans do we have in here right now?
I
I'll
like
eat it.
oatmeal.
I do it.
All right.
You?
No. I mean, I'll eat it
Starving.
if starvation is the other option. I'll have oatmeal.
I think it's always nice on a winter day to start the day with some oatmeal.
Oh,
With some
yeah,
brown
if you
sugar?
can't have bacon and eggs and
Oh,
stuff. But
see, even with bacon and eggs, I think I'd want bacon and oatmeal.
oh,
With the maple with little bacon crispy bits on.
oh, now you're getting gross.
We're way off track.
But now.
As far as we know, this oatmeal was just plain.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
It's
But
whatever
they
it
seem
was.
thankful to get it. So anyway, some of the kids can't do soccer, and instead they're taught chess, and the leader of the ministry that's dealing with them is a chess guy and is apparently really good. And so he's teaching these kids how to play chess. Now the issue is that Fiona becomes something of a phenom at chess.
Turns out she's naturally great at strategy and
thinking moves through.
And on top of that, she works very hard at it.
Yeah.
In fact, she learns to read just so that she can read
more about
chess
strategy.
strategy books.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Well, and she plays these games in her head when she's just having to sit there waiting to go and sell some corn or something for her family. You know, she's playing games in her head.
yeah, I think that's
So I think
right.
that provides her a little bit of a release from what her reality is.
Well, she is so good that the ministry springs to send her to some competitions.
Yeah.
First in Uganda and then some international competitions in Africa.
Yeah.
And then
And then
finally
all the way
in
to-
some kind of like a world competition.
In Russia.
Right. And so the happy ending of the story is that her life story is eventually made into a book.
Yeah.
And
she's able to get a house for her family with those
right, it's very
funds
popular.
And,
And then there's a deal where I guess if you become an official chess master, you're actually paid to do nothing but play chess.
right, yeah.
And
You
paid
get
a
a
lot of
stipend to
money.
go to all these different
Yeah,
tournaments
right,
and stuff.
right. Okay. Now there's more to it than that. There's some subplots and stuff that we may get into, but let's just talk about overall. What were your thoughts? Well, let me do it this way. Was there what was good about it? Was there anything you liked about it?
I feel like there was some pretty good acting. You know, I was believing most of the characters and stuff. Like, it felt really well acted, and so that was nice. I don't know. What do you think, Mom?
There was a real stark contrast from what Americans see as poverty.
Oh, yeah.
And I think to see poverty put in the light that it was in this movie, that they live in homes with no roofs, that there are no windows, that floodwaters can come in and take away everything that you have,
Right.
that, there's
Dirt
no
floors
traffic
and-
laws.
yeah.
You're just the level of poverty that there was is, I think, shocking, because we have a lot of people in our country that would say they live in poverty, and yet it's nowhere close to what this family
Right.
considered normal. That was their life. That's how things went.
Yeah.
And I think especially for the mom, that wasn't her life originally. Her husband died, and then she was,
Plunged into poverty.
she was suddenly drastically in a different place and did everything she could to take care of her kids.
And you like that aspect of the portrayal.
The
reality?
Yeah, the reality of that. And it probably wasn't as real as it could have been, but it really did put a spin on, what their life was and why, these kids didn't go to school. They watched other kids go to school.
Yeah.
They had to help work with whatever they could to make sure that they had money for rent, money to get food, to sell food. They did not have what we would consider a normal childhood.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think I liked visually. I thought the movie was really well done from a production standpoint.
Right.
I thought all the sets and all the scenes looked very African to me.
Yeah. I would say so.
Even when the poor kids got to go to a more affluent setting,
Yeah.
it still felt like Africa.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think so. Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I thought the costumes were really well done. And,
Oh yeah, there were some really nice costumes, I thought.
yeah, so I felt like the production value, I guess, is on my mind was really high quality. I felt
Yeah.
like.
Well, it's Disney.
Yeah, it's not like they didn't have a budget or anything. They did pretty well. And I did think that overall message-wise, I appreciated it.
Sure.
And we'll get into that in just a second here, but yeah. I guess I need to ask: what did you not like about this movie?
It was kind of slow, and it felt like it was really long for what the story I ended up being. You know, I feel like you could have gotten the same story out a lot quicker if you'd been a little more, if they'd been a little more economical with how they used scenes and how they developed things and moved stuff along. You know,
Right.
It just felt really pretty slow a lot of the time.
Yeah, in fact, I think we all came to a point, it was toward the end of the movie, where we were wondering, man, how long is this movie?
I think another issue was just the accents.
Oh, yeah.
That
The really thick Ugandan accents that are sometimes...
It was kind of hard. And then they would actually speak in their language, and then we'd see the subtitles. And so, you know, there was... I think that was something that was a little bit hard every now and then, was to... What'd they say? What was that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I think, now I don't know the story, I haven't read the book, so I haven't done any extra research, that the ministry actually played a bigger part in the real story than what it looks like it does in the movie. I mean, it's just kind
let's talk about
of
that.
a glancing
We'll save
blow.
that.
So
We'll
I
save that.
didn't think that was maybe as fully developed. So that was something that it didn't make quite as much sense to me in the movie.
Well, I felt like just from a storytelling standpoint, Jordan kind of hit on it. I felt like if it had been purely fictional, you could have told the same story with an economy that just wasn't in this.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's because they were being too faithful to the actual real story, so they wound up maybe telling things that didn't really advance the plot very far. And
Sure.
stuff like that, just for the sake of telling the actual story.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, yeah, that's good. Tell the real story if that's what you're setting out to do, but
Yeah.
you do have to kind of still have a story.
Yeah.
There were issues storytelling wise with Fiona's sister Knight,
Yeah.
who kind of gets sucked into was she a prostitute? Is that what she wound up doing?
She was probably a lady of the evening.
So yes.
Well, she had fancy dresses, fancy garb.
I don't
Flashy.
think she knew that's what she was getting into, but I think it's clear that that's what it wound up being. So this girl winds up having a baby, and we don't see her very much in the story after that.
Yeah.
And then suddenly she's there when they have the new house, and they're all gonna live happily ever after. And here's the sister again with the new baby, and then we get the point where they write up on the screen what happened to all these characters.
To all the real life people.
Right, and it talks about this girl Knight. It talks about her having 4 more kids.
Yeah.
And apparently out of wedlock, and so the Fiona's mom is now taking care of these 5 grandkids that are living in the house with them.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, that story just kind of hung there. There was no real explanation. There was certainly no resolution.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just from a storytelling standpoint, I thought that was not great. All right.
Well, I don't think, did they really say what Fiona went on to do, or?
Well, just that she...
Was still pursuing chess.
Chess, yeah. Just doing chess stuff.
Advancing through the ranks and winning tournaments.
Yeah.
She's still pretty young, right?
Yeah, I think so, because
the movie came out in 2016, and I think it was documenting stuff from 2015.
13.
13 and 11 and...
Yeah, so Fiona's still pretty young. Yeah. All right. Well, anything else? I just whistled, breathing in.
You're like a what?
Trying to get it recorded.
It's gone now.
Wow. Living in dry New Mexico.
Oh boy.
Inhaling, I just whistled inside my throat. That's That's a pretty amazing thing.
That's not the norm.
No. But you never know what you're going to get on Worldview Media Podcast.
Oh, man.
Well, there you go.
Marvels of human anatomy.
Right.
Just never stops here. Never stops.
Bonus. All right.
Then you almost do it again. Bonus.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy. It never stops. I think we should take our break, collect ourselves,
Okay.
and
Right.
come back.
Whistling.
There will be no whistling later. No intentional whistling. All right. See ya.
The Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network brings to you a complete lineup of podcasts where you will hear practical and tactical theology. Our desire is not simply that you consume our shows, but that you also live out your faith in every area of life. We can talk all day long about these things, but if we fail to put them into practice, then we fail as ambassadors of Jesus Christ, our King. Subscribe now to your favorite Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network shows, or you can subscribe to the Reconstructionist Radio Master Feed, where all of the content we produce, including the audiobooks and audio articles, will pop up as soon as they are available. And don't forget to visit reconstructionistradio.com to volunteer as a narrator or to partner with this ministry financially. May the Holy Spirit stir you into action for Christ and His kingdom.
And welcome back. I've been playing my throat like a harmonica while... a harmonica.
Oh, no.
Well, here we are. Worldview Media Podcast. We're talking about the Queen of Katwe.
Did you say?
What did I say?
I think you hit your D a little strange, and it sounded more like a T, like Worldview Media Podcast.
Oh, podcast?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we should start over.
No, we're gonna just
What?
forge ahead.
Come on.
Forge ahead.
There are no extra takes.
When did
This
that
is
become
live.
the rule?
This is live.
All right.
Worldview Media Podcast.
Well, that was intentional.
What are we talking? Queen of Katwe.
Yes.
And in this segment, we want to talk about more worldview issues. What are the kind of main messages? Was there a moral to the story? Were you impressed at moral crisis and how they were handled or anything like that? Anybody got anything?
Well, one thing that stood out to me was that coach guy, when he was looking to get that job, that engineering job, and so he finally got offered that job with these engineering people and stuff, and he ended up
Now,
having
this is a guy who's being paid very little to work for the ministry.
to do this
and
sports
to coach
thing.
the chess. And he's got a chance to get a job that pays a great deal.
Yeah, and he's got like a wife, and does he have and a little
Right,
a little baby? Well, and so he turns down this engineering job because he feels like he needs to be in the ministry doing his chess thing like he's been doing, and he tells his wife about it, and he apologizes and says, look, I'm sorry I couldn't take this job and stuff. And I really thought it was cool what she said, how she was like, what are you doing? Why are you apologizing for doing the thing that you know is the right thing to do? Like, and that was cool to me, I thought, because it's like, yeah, that's a good thing, because you have to know, what's ultimately going to be important and where you're supposed to be, and how to best use what you've been given to like help other people and to do and to fulfill like real meaningful purposes and stuff. And so I thought that was cool.
And good job by her
Yeah.
to recognize that this is what God's doing with my husband. And
Yeah.
Yeah, good job by her.
I thought that whole scene was really nice. I was like, oh, cool. That's good.
Because he was trepidatious about, oh, she's not going to like it.
Yeah,
That I
yeah.
just turn this down.
when it could have been better for us, and he
Right.
feels like it's like she deserves so much more than he's able to give her right now and stuff, and that she was, able to recognize, look, that stuff isn't important. It's this stuff that you're doing here, these kids and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
So there's an element of self-sacrifice and then of shared sacrifice, which was really neat to see. Now, there was an issue that Mom kind of touched on, and I think we've all had this idea that, okay, so here's this coach guy, and he's feeding the kids, and he's trying to teach them something.
Mm-hmm.
And the sign on the wall says, like, sports outreach ministry.
Right.
And I feel like we all think that was obviously some kind of Christian ministry.
Yeah. I think that was
poor.
pretty clear.
And and they did show people praying quite a bit here and there, and some mentions of God here and there, but I think we all kind of had the idea that maybe that's a place where telling the true story wound up editing some stuff out and purposely kind of getting rid of what was probably a Christian emphasis.
Yeah.
I can't say that for sure, but I got the same feeling y'all did, that there was probably more of a story to tell there.
Yeah.
That they decided not to.
I think that's probably true. Because if it's the kind of ministry that we all kind of suspect that it is, like, he's probably doing more than just teaching them chess, when he's got all these kids around and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but we don't see any of that stuff.
Yeah, that was conspicuous by its absence, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Mom, did you notice anything else? Morals, meanings?
I think the way the mom handled stuff with her kids, she wasn't sure what this organization was to begin with, and, she went in, barrels loaded, what are you doing with my kids, what's going on in here? And then, even though it was hard for her to say, okay, this is going to provide my kids opportunities that I can't.
Yeah.
And I can't go and be there with them, but I need to let them do this. That really was another kind of self-sacrificing thing that I'm going to let you do this. I'm going to let you go to school. I'm going to let you go on trips around the country and across the world. And she did that, and I don't think it was ever thinking, okay, now Fiona's going to get this really good position and it's going to change our lives.
Right.
She just did that because she wanted to see something better for her kids, more than she could give them.
Right. Yeah, I think that was definitely self-sacrifice, because the whole reason they're impoverished is because she's a widow.
Mm-hmm.
She's already lost her husband. Her oldest daughter has gone crazy and
And she lost another child.
Yeah, they had some other kid that
and now she's voluntarily loosening her grip on her daughter and son.
Yeah.
And gonna let them traipse around the world
with these people.
With people she doesn't know.
Yeah.
And then at the end she winds up selling one of the only items of value she had to
help pay for
paraffin wax so that Fiona could stay up at night reading by candlelight.
Right.
And so there was self-sacrifice there.
Yeah.
I thought the way that was portrayed was kind of funny though, because like Mom says, that she initially as she's meeting up with all these new things and people asking her permission to take her kids to this or that, she never greets that really well.
No.
Right? In fact, she's kind of fierce about it. No way. And then the next scene are the kids flying away to wherever they were going to go.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that part of the story was necessarily told very well. Because you have a scene where she's adamant and, no, you leave my children alone, and the next scene the children are on the plane flying. Yeah,
that's true. I did think that she retained a lot of dignity even in the
situation,
poverty and stuff. I felt like she kept herself very as dignified as she could.
Because there were people that wanted her to say, look at your situation. There are things that you can do that will help you. And
Yeah.
she just said, I cannot do those things.
Right.
You know, if
Right.
it was cozying up to somebody who said, I'll give you a lot of money for whatever, you know.
Right. Or marrying the wrong guy or
Right.
something like that. Yeah. Yeah, so even in the midst of her poverty, her own moral compass really allowed her to retain what you call dignity.
Yeah.
I might say more a sense of honor. She was an honorable woman and,
Right.
And a good mom as best she could be.
Right.
Yeah, so she was a good character. And the moral crisis that I saw was with Fiona herself when she felt like success was right in her grasp. And she goes to the big tournament where she can earn this lifelong stipend or whatever.
Yeah. To become a master.
To become a chess master, and she loses, and the opportunity is gone because she's lost. And now she's confronted with kind of a choice to be in despair and to feel like, well, now my life is always going to be this other thing that I've been trying so hard to escape from. And,
Right.
And how will I deal with this? And the whole challenge about, do I keep pressing on? How can I press on? I don't see a safe space to go to and stuff like that. And having the coach there to continue to spur her forward was a good thing. But that was a moral crisis, and I would have almost liked to seen that be explored more.
Right.
And what exactly was it that pulled her out of that? You know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think she experienced that earlier in the movie because what she knew was all that she knew. And chess really exposed her to different things. So she started, you know, they went to this other upscale part of
Right.
Uganda and nice schools and nice dresses and
Lots of
obviously
food.
out
Yeah,
of place.
right.
And, you know, that was way different than any
Right.
of them had.
I thought
ever
it was
been
a nice
exposed to.
touch, the scene where they had nice beds set out for all
Yeah.
the kids.
Right.
And all the kids from Katwe, they'd never
Had a
slept on a bed.
Yeah.
And when the coach goes in to say goodnight to them, they're all huddled up against each other on the floor because
Yeah.
That's how they sleep.
that's how they slept, is just
Yeah.
huddled together on the floor. And
Right.
that was a very poignant scene, I thought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I would call that.
Just what Mom said is a way of illustrating, you know, you think you know what poverty is.
Yeah.
These kids know what poverty is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see Fiona when she comes back and the lady's doing her hair and she's like, I'm here, but I've been there and I don't feel right here and I don't feel right there, so where do I belong? What's my place? How does this work for me? So I think she came to I think what you were saying when she lost that one match, that's really where it came to, you know, it kind of blew up. Where do I belong? I don't belong here. If I belonged here, I'd win. And the truth is that you rarely have that kind of success that she did have.
Right.
You know, it's more often a learning by doing. Okay, I didn't do so well this time. I'm going to work out a little bit harder and get a little
Right.
bit better. And so, and I think sometimes that's really hard when things just come so easily to you that suddenly it's not so easy and then,
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
what do you do?
yeah.
I cannot explain it in a concise way, but one time, just on a whim, I kind of did a biblical word study, specifically in the book of Proverbs, on the concept of diligence. And I was specifically fascinated by what I saw as the connection between diligence and what we would call heroism and courage.
Huh.
And I'm convinced the two are connected, and
Yeah.
we don't tend to think of it that way. But there's something to be said about doing the things that you know are right day after day after day, just because you know that they're the right things to do.
Right.
And that's diligence, but there's something about that leads to godly courage. And I'm not smart enough to be able to explain what the connection is, but I think courage grows out of the seed bed that you lay down by being diligent in whatever it is that God has called you to. Maybe I did just explain it. Well, anyway, somebody smarter than me can take that and run with it. But I'm convinced that diligence and courage are connected. And what the coach was trying to show Fiona, and I think what she was learning without realizing it, is that was that virtue of diligence.
Right.
That generally, even when God blesses you with great things, it normally comes by a path that has been laid down by diligent work. It rarely is like Star Trek transporter and God beams a blessing here and there.
Right.
He can do that. But a lot of the times the blessings that we consider to be important, like prosperity and peace and health and all of that, there's some diligence behind that. And
Right.
so, and I think that's a very Protestant way of thinking about things. Prosperity doesn't get beamed into your life.
Yeah.
Prosperity comes by diligent hard work day after day.
Sure.
And I feel like that's one of the underlying messages of the movie.
Well, and that's perseverance. I mean,
Right.
Perseverance, yeah,
and
definitely.
And that
So-
thing about not tipping your king over too soon.
Yeah,
About how you
that
gotta,
was-
just because it looks like,
It looks hopeless,
Yeah.
but don't concede
Yeah.
too early.
Don't walk away. Yeah.
And that's kind of how they communicated that. And then the other scene where he sets up the board in a way and says, "See, the king is trapped, or is he?" Take a moment to think about: is there a safe space where the king can move? And
right.
so that's another thing that I found fascinating, and I've actually thought of before, was using chess as an analogy for both life in general, but also really for spiritual warfare. We won't get into that here, but there's good analogies there, and the movie did make use of some of that,
Right.
for sure. Also, in you hear it a lot in sports, but you hear it a lot in like mixed martial arts. The idea that hard work beats talent if talent refuses to work hard.
Oh.
And so that's just a thing. You can see fighters out there who are obviously more athletically gifted,
Right.
and some little guy that isn't built very well and doesn't look like a fighter or an athlete, he whoops up on him because he's been working harder than the other guy has.
Right.
He's
He's
been
putting more
diligent.
into.
Right. He's
In
been
his
diligent
training.
in his
Yeah.
work. That's right.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that lesson. I think it's a lost lesson in our day. It's maybe not the most important lesson that there is to teach, but it's still a lesson that needs to be taught. And I think as American Christians, we've nearly lost that lesson.
Well, definitely as Americans.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to work hard and long at anything in order to achieve something.
But and I feel like homeschooling is one of the places that lesson does get taught, even if we're not purposely teaching it. Because there are days when neither mom or the kids wants to do school, and
Yeah.
you wind up doing it anyway, and scratching and clawing your way to the end of the day or
Everybody's
whatever.
miserable.
Right. But you do find a way to press through, and there's something just in that's a valuable worldview lesson
Yeah.
that I think is good.
Well, and it's just, that's life. And when that happens, what are you going to do? You can't
Right.
just say, okay, I quit.
Right.
I'm tipping my king. It's over. I'm not playing anymore. That's not realistic.
Right. Jordan, did you have anything else?
No, I don't think so. I think
Are you
we've been
sure?
talking pretty good. Well, what else would I have, Mom?
I don't know.
You have
Something.
anything else?
Well, let's see.
Mom says no.
Are you sure?
Well, maybe I could come up with something.
Oh, let's call it into the old podcast.
But you had all the community support, and everybody was so proud of the little girl from the underside.
Oh
The
yeah,
underside.
it was interesting to see, and that really does happen. It's kind of an amazing thing. that in a community that's a real community, one person's success sure does seem to be important to a lot
Kind
of
of
people.
buoys everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was nice.
So, and then just the coach, when he's going in to see about them competing at this nicer school, and the guy's like, oh no, we can't have your kids there. You know, they're not even in school, they don't do this, they don't qualify. And, you know, he gets them to say, okay, so what if I raise the money? Well, if you raise the money, okay, if I raise the money, we can go. He says, that's not what okay, I'll be back.
Thanks
then-
for agreeing.
Thank you for your commitment that if I do this.
Even with the way that he raised the money, I mean, he raised the money by playing.
himself,
Yeah,
yeah.
he did that for his kids.
Right.
So just a
It was a
it's a good
heartwarming story.
It's a good story. It probably could have been a better story.
Yeah.
Will we watch it again, Jordan?
No,
Yeah.
we won't watch it again.
We probably won't watch it again.
Not even Mom will buy this movie.
No,
No.
won't buy this one.
If it had a superhero in it, things might be changed.
Well,
The
It kinda
Queen of
did
Katwe is kind
Have
of
a superhero.
that's a
in it.
superhero name.
sure.
All right, let's stop this foolishness.
Only if you whistle. It's not whistling.
It's never gonna happen again.
you gotta try diligence.
That was a once in a lifetime thing, I think. Can't get lightning in a bottle again.
Again, once maybe.
All right. Well, we're going to go home.
All right.
So we'll see you all.
go
God
home
bless
too.
you. Again, my encouragement to the creative ones among us, the artists, God has gifted you. God has filled you with His Holy Spirit so that you can reflect His glory in the artistic endeavors that He set before you. So go and attack it with fervor and diligence. See how I brought that all around?
Nice.
All
You
right.
do that.
Yep.
All right.
That's why you get paid the big bucks.
That's why they pay me. All right. See y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Worldview Media Podcast. Please visit reconstructionistradio.com to check out the other podcasts in our network and to download our free audiobooks.